So this is the beginning of your Adobe Illustrator. So you want to get a good foundation so that as you build upon the skills you learn at the beginning, you're going to be strengthened and you're going to learn a little bit more advanced ways of using certain things. So you may find that there are certain tools you have learned on your own that I don't discuss right now. There's definitely a reason for it. So please don't think I'm ignoring it, but definitely come talk to me if there's a tool that you think could work better for what we're doing. It just might not be that I'm going to introduce it quite yet. So this is the beginning. Very first thing you're going to do is you're going to begin a new document. You always begin that in File, New, or you can see there's a lot of keyboard shortcuts that you'll get used to. You may find I do something on my screen, but you don't see me open up any of these because I've memorized some of the keyboard shortcuts that are most important to me. Pretty soon you'll get a little post-it note on your laptop with Illustrator shortcuts. And there will be another one for Photoshop shortcuts. Please know there'll be different colors. Please leave them both on there for various classes. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and begin a new one. But it's really important that you take a look at this because a lot of people will just begin and they'll just like, okay. And then all of a sudden they begin working and something is very obviously wrong. And a lot of what goes wrong happens right in here. Right in here being, first of all, inches versus points, for example. If I tell you I want you to do an 8.5 by 11, like a normal sheet of paper, I will have students that will do that and they'll say, okay. And they get this artboard, but then they start working and they suddenly realize very quickly something's wrong. Or they go to print it. Sorry, we're a little laggy here. They go to print it and they will find, again, I'm not scaling. They'll find that there's a huge problem when it comes out of the print. Do you see that little tiny box right there? Barely visible? That's my picture. That's what happens if you're not really careful about making the right choice from the start. So I want to preach that from the start. We're going to make sure that you can refer to this in a couple of ways. First of all, I would definitely recommend inches as you guys are working because look at my document was 0.12 of an inch by 0.15 of an inch. It was tiny. So I could come in here and type in my 8.5, type in my 11. I could also come in here and I could use a regular letter size, and that'll be my default, okay? So just getting started, that's exactly what I want to look for. I want to make sure that this is a nice, good sized document for my piece, okay? So with that, I want to go ahead and just introduce you a little bit into some of the tools in here. First of all, I'm going to call this one the left toolbar. We're going to call these, just for the sake of making it easier, the top toolbars and the right-hand toolbars. So those are various tools and functions that you will need in order to continue. A couple of the very first ones, though, have to do with these two arrows. There's an arrow that is all black. There's an arrow that is like a gray. We'll call that one white because I guess most of these would be white. Against a black background, but I have gray on. This black arrow is a regular selection tool. You can see when I hover over the top of it, you will also get a little keyboard shortcut for many of them. The keyboard shortcut for this one is the letter V. At one point, you're going to find, hey, it's really helpful if I just tap on the letter V. But until that point, you know you're just going to come back here and click on the thing that you need in order to work, okay? This one has that little tiny corner piece. Do you guys see that? This little piece right down here at the corner underneath on the bottom right hand side. That indicates if I click and hold, there are multiple tools located underneath there. So anytime you see that, if you click and hold, you will see this one has 2. This one has 4. So you want to make sure that you know the difference and how to switch between. Now, if I need this tool, I'm just going to click on it because that's the one that's up here and I'm going to use it. You don't have to do this and select it over there. I have a lot of students that do that. The only reason you would do that is if you needed to change that tool. Right now we're just going to keep it on the regular direct selection tool. So this is a selection tool. It'll select an object or a pathway. This one is a direct selection tool which will select an anchor point, which is going to be very important as you guys are building some of your beginning starting shapes, okay? The next thing that I want to go ahead and talk about is in Illustrator, you do have layers just like Photoshop, but the layers are not as vital as in Photoshop. So our layers here, here's our artboard. This is our layers. If you have any of these menus missing, which is very likely, whatever you're looking for, all you have to do is go up to Window, and you're going to go ahead and click on whatever it is, and you should see it pop up. So you want to make sure that you have layers available. So that layers might be, I'm making a map, and I want to go ahead and put the city formation, then I want to put the streets on another layer, then I want to put the text on a third layer, etc. But in Illustrator, they still say to stay separated, even if they overlap and they're on the same layer. So that's what's pretty cool, okay? So as we're going, I want to go ahead and explain a little bit more about shape. So here's our shape tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down on that left toolbar. Now you guys may not be able to follow along too much. I really want you to just watch, and then later on we will do. So I definitely want to keep that in mind so you don't feel like you're falling behind, but I can finish this and then get you working. Again, click and hold. You will see it has a lot of possible tools. The one I'm going to ask you not to use right now is going to be our flare tool. We're not using anything with that flare tool. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just pick a simple shape. I'm going to go with a rectangle, okay? Now if I come through here and I click and I drag, I get a rectangle. If I click and drag while holding the Shift key, I get a perfect square. So any of these shapes, when I hold the Shift key on my keyboard and I drag, that shape will be perfect, which is very important when you're doing designs that require that perfection in shape. So you can see I'm getting all these perfect shapes. If I don't hold it, I'm getting whatever shape and way kind of that I drag it. Now when I drag it, you can see that I have a W and an H. That's my width and height. So it is really, really helpful. If I know I need a 2-inch circle, I can go ahead and hold the Shift key. I'm going to scroll this down. I'm going to move it up. There I am, 2 inches. I'm going to go ahead and let go of that, and I've got that nice, perfect 2-inch circle. Okay. You will also see as you're working, I'm going to go back to my selection tool. You'll see that it'll help you. You see those pink lines? They will help you align intersecting points. So you can see this one aligns to the middle of the square underneath it and to the top of the rectangle to its left. So that is a really helpful feature because when you're designing something that needs some kind of a balance, you need to make sure it's nice and even. You want to be able to do that with relative ease. Right here, I'm in the middle. You can see my center point has aligned right there. You can see I also happen to be aligned with the bottom of this over here. So it is real. There I am at center. I knew something was wrong. It's really important that you just kind of play around with that and kind of get an idea as to what that does. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of those things. I'm just going to back up a little bit, and then I'm going to start talking about these right here. Okay. So wait, how did I get rid of? How did I get rid of those shapes? You could simply use this. You could draw a box all around them and then just hit the delete key. That would be pretty easy as long as they're all on the same layer. You can also just select something and hit the delete key on your keyboard. Okay, so that's how I did it. So just in case you were wondering, that's how I cleared it off. To change the color, that one was a white box with a black outline. You're going to need to be utilizing a lot of color throughout here. At the beginning, we're going to stick to black and white, the very first couple things we do. But then we're going to start adding pops of color. Then you're going to start in fuller color. That is right here. So baseline understanding of this guy right here, this is my stroke, which is the outline. This is my fill, which is the inside. So it is filled with white, with an outline or an outer stroke of black. Very important to know. Now, let's say I don't want an outline. Let's say I just need a white box. I'm going to want to take that fill off. So I click on fill. That one is brought to the top, and I press that little none, that little not sign, that red. That means that now we will have a white box. But then a white box on a white background doesn't make any sense, Miss Glaze. Not for what I need right now. So I'm going to click back over here, and I'm going to go ahead and change that color. I can do that right here by double clicking on here. Then I can go ahead into this and kind of dial it and move it to whatever color I need. I can also go to my color swatches, and that's a little bit more advanced in terms of like cyan, magenta, yellow, and black values. So some people will need that, some people will not. I know I want some kind of an orange, and I want it to be a nice saturated bright orange. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, so I now have a fill of orange with no outer stroke. And if I go ahead in with my ellipse tool, I now have just that. I'm going to click off of it so you can see there's no outline. When I hover though, let me zoom in. When I hover though, I do see my path. And again, Illustrator, we talked about this a little bit, but Illustrator is made up of vector points. And those vector points are what allow us to make this design really big or really small without distortion or without having like, you know, like when you blow up a picture on Microsoft Word and you print it, looks all like fuzzy and pixelated. You will never get pixels from this. That's why it is an industry standard for graphic design. That's why people charge so much more for vector-based artwork. You can make a lot more money for vector-based artwork than you can for pixel-based artwork. So it is really important for you to know a little bit about the difference that we'll keep talking about. But that I really want you to be aware of. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out. You can see I'm not doing anything on my screen, but I'm actually on the keyboard. Control plus zooms in, Control minus zooms out. Another really helpful keyboard shortcut. You can also go over here and you can sort of type a value in, or you could use your magnifying glass to zoom in. But I find it so much easier just to use that keyboard shortcut. So right now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to test out adding a variety of, actually let me put an outer stroke on this one. Let me show you how. I'm going to put a really contrasting color on there. And then I'm going to go ahead back to my shape tool and I'm going to go ahead and make a polygon. I'm going to drag that in. You can see right now, especially when I click off of it, you'll see a little tiny green outline. So let's say, nope, you know what? I need a bigger green outline. I'm going to click on that with my selection tool. I selected that as active. Then I'm going to go ahead and go up here and I'm going to increase that point. So the higher the number, the larger the outer stroke. You will also find there's a lot of other possibilities in here that I'm not going to explain right now. I just want to keep it pretty basic. But what I'd like to see is I'd like to see that you guys have filled your canvas with shapes of all different kinds besides the flare. We're just going with everything, these top 5. I would like you to change the color of the fill and the outer stroke. Both colors and the outer stroke, the actual point width of that stroke. I just want you playing around with that for today so that you kind of get a good feeling for that tool. And then we can start talking about what it is we need to enhance that tool. And that is what you're doing today.